people ask why I hated Reggie Miller, here's your answer.
Of all his rivalries, Michael Jordan hated Reggie Miller the most. And when I say hated, I mean the kind of hatred that stuck with him for decades. Reggie Miller didn't just trash talk, he managed to expose a side of Jordan that almost no one else could reach. He got under MJ's skin, made him lose his composure, and even pushed things so far that the two ended up throwing punches in the middle of a game. Today, we're diving into exactly why Michael Jordan couldn't stand Reggie Miller, and I promise, it runs much deeper than you think. To understand how their beef really started, you have to rewind all the way back to an exhibition game in 1987. At that time, Reggie Miller had just entered the NBA. Like every other rookie, he wanted to test himself against the best, but unlike most, he didn't keep his mouth shut. During the first half, Jordan wasn't exactly dominating, he had scored just 4 points. Seeing that as an opportunity, Reggie decided to poke the bear and said something that would ignite one of the most intense rivalries in basketball history.
You're right, Michael, who do you think you are? The great Michael Jordan? That's right, there's a new kid on town, right?
Imagine trash-talking a guy in just his third season who was already averaging 37 points a game. That takes serious guts. The funny part is, Michael Jordan didn't even respond much at first. He just smirked, nodded, and kept it moving. But once the second half started, it was like someone flipped a switch. Jordan went from casually jogging around to full-on assassin mode. He started draining bucket after bucket, making it crystal clear to everyone in the arena exactly who he was. By the end of the game, MJ had scored over 40 points, while Reggie Miller got humbled so badly that he later admitted it was the first and last time he ever tried talking trash to Michael Jordan. That game wasn't just funny in hindsight, it became the foundation for everything that came after. From Jordan's perspective, Reggie wasn't just another opponent anymore, he was the rookie who disrespected him and forced him to remind the world exactly who Michael Jordan was. And if there's one thing everyone knows about Jordan, it's that he never lets things go. What started as a pre-season joke slowly turned into years of tension. Every time the Bulls faced the Pacers, there was an extra edge, and it wasn't just about competition. Jordan genuinely had it out for Reggie. By 1993, things had escalated so much that their rivalry exploded into an all-out brawl on the court. By then, Reggie Miller wasn't some rookie anymore. He'd become the face of the Indiana Pacers, averaging 20 points a night and earning a reputation as one of the NBA's most annoying sharpshooters. And not Patrick Beverley annoying, where he just yells at refs. No, Miller was the kind of player who clung to you like static, never stopped talking, and somehow always got the calls to go his way. So when Indiana faced Chicago in March of that season, the tension was already boiling. The Bulls were chasing a three-peat, Jordan was at the absolute peak of his powers, and Miller was desperate to prove that the Pacers weren't just background characters in the Michael Jordan movie. The game turned physical, and then things exploded.
1 on 2, 1 on 3, couldn't get it, and put back, no, it did fall. Now Michael Jordan and Reggie Miller having a go at it. And I mean, we had fist throwing, here come the benches.
Here's the thing about that fight, it wasn't just some random brawl. Michael Jordan had an unwritten code. He demanded respect. You could battle him, you could even get physical with him, but if you crossed the line with attitude, if you acted like you were on his level, he took it as a personal insult.
And Reggie Miller? He didn't care.
He crossed that line with a grin on his face. If the 1993 fight showed how deep their rivalry ran, then the 1998 Eastern Conference Finals proved that Reggie Miller not only had the audacity but also the talent to nearly change Jordan's legacy forever. This was Jordan's so-called last dance. The Bulls were chasing their 6th championship in 8 years. The dynasty was fading, and the Pacers had finally built a team strong enough to challenge them. Reggie had a solid crew behind him: Rick Smits, Mark Jackson, Chris Mullin, and a young Jalen Rose. This wasn't just Miller versus Jordan anymore, it was a full-on clash between two basketball powerhouses.
And the Pacers?
They weren't scared. Not even a little. The series went all the way to 7 games, and every matchup was brutal. Chicago had the championship pedigree, but Indiana had nothing to lose, and that made them dangerous. Reggie Miller thrived in that kind of chaos. Game 4 was when the madness peaked. The Pacers were down by 1, the clock ticking down, and Miller got the ball on the wing. Guess who was guarding him?
Michael Jordan, locked in, glued to him.
Most players would have panicked in that moment. But Reggie? He shoved MJ out of the way, stepped back, and drained a three-pointer with less than a second left on the clock. Market Square Arena erupted. The crowd went wild as Miller pounded his chest, roaring like he had just slain a god. And honestly, in that moment, it felt like he had.
2.9 seconds. Harper's on Miller. McKee gets it into Miller for the win.
That shove became the defining snapshot of their entire rivalry. Think about it. Who else would have the guts to shove Michael Jordan in a playoff game on national television?
Nobody.
And the craziest part? There was no whistle.
No foul. Nothing.
If that play happened in today's NBA, the internet would have exploded with memes and outrage. For the Pacers, that moment proved they weren't afraid of the Bulls' aura. They didn't care about the legend, the rings, or the intimidation. But for Jordan, it was deeply personal. He already found Reggie Miller annoying, but now this same guy had literally pushed him aside, in front of millions, and got away with it. And the thing is, Jordan wasn't one to forget moments like that. Even he later admitted that the Indiana Pacers were the toughest team he ever faced in the East, outside of the bad boy Pistons. But that's a story for later.
If I had to pick a team that gave us the toughest time in the East, Indiana was probably the toughest outside of Detroit.
And that's really the full arc of their rivalry. It started with a rookie's trash talk gone wrong in '87, escalated into a full-on brawl in '93, and reached its peak with that dynasty-threatening shove in '98. But even after all those years and battles, one question still lingers. Why did Michael Jordan single out Reggie Miller more than anyone else? Here's where things get interesting. Jordan had rivalries with almost every big name of the '90s, but if you line them all up, there's a clear difference in how he viewed them compared to how he viewed Reggie. Take Charles Barkley, for example. On the court, their battles were intense. Barkley even stole the MVP from Jordan in '93, and their finals matchup that same year was brutal. But off the court, there was mutual respect, even friendship. Jordan admired Barkley's game, and Barkley respected Jordan's killer instinct. They'd golf together, hang out, and it felt like two alphas who understood and respected each other. Their real falling out didn't happen until years later, when Barkley publicly criticized Jordan's ownership of the Charlotte Hornets. But even that feud was about business, not basketball.
On the drive, in for the left, gets chased into the corner, comes right back, down! Ewing! Through the foul!
Patrick Ewing was another one. Every spring, Bulls versus Knicks was basically a war. Ewing took more playoff beatdowns from Jordan than almost anyone, but even then, there was a sense of mutual respect between them. Ewing knew he was facing the greatest of all time, and Jordan respected Ewing's toughness, consistency, and never-back-down mentality. Whenever Jordan talks about his toughest battles, he always mentions the Knicks, and that's largely because of Patrick Ewing's presence. Their rivalry was fierce, but underneath it all, there was admiration.
Jordan putting the move on Porter, stopped by Drexler.
Then there's Clyde Drexler, the guy the media tried to hype up as Jordan's equal. That narrative didn't last long. The 1992 finals made sure of that. Looking back, it's almost funny how quickly Jordan shut that talk down. In Game 1 alone, he torched Drexler and the Blazers, hitting 6 three-pointers in the first half just to make a point. Even after completely outclassing him on the biggest stage, Jordan still gave Drexler his due, calling him one of the league's great players. Isaiah Thomas, though, was a different story altogether. The rivalry between the Bulls and the Pistons was pure hatred. Those games were bloodbaths. Thomas and Jordan could barely stand to be in the same room, but even that animosity was rooted in competition and respect for what each represented. Now compare all of that to Reggie Miller. With Reggie, there was no respect. No, he made me better. No, he was one of the greats I had to go through. None of that. What Jordan felt toward Miller was pure irritation. He didn't see him as a rival on his level. He saw him as a pest, someone who hadn't earned the right to poke the bear but kept doing it anyway. And if you think that's just an exaggeration, you don't have to take anyone else's word for it. You can hear it straight from Michael Jordan himself.
People have asked me for years why I couldn't stand Reggie Miller. It wasn't the trash talk or even the way he played. It was the way he carried himself, like he actually thought he was built like me. That's when I knew he had no idea who he was messing with.
That's the difference. Barkley got respect. Ewing got respect. Even Isaiah Thomas, as much as Jordan hated him, still got respect. But Reggie Miller? He got none of it. And that's where things started to get even more personal. In an interview with ESPN, Michael Jordan once said, "I don't really dislike anybody in the league, but playing Reggie Miller drives me nuts. It's like chicken fighting with a woman. His game is all this flopping type thing. He weighs only 185 pounds, so you have to be careful. Don't touch him or it's a foul. He's got his hands on you all the time, like a woman holding your waist. I just want to beat his hands off because it's illegal. It irritates me. I don't know about you, but that's a brutal description." Jordan wasn't just saying Reggie talked too much. He was calling out his entire style of basketball as annoying and fake. To MJ, Miller wasn't playing men's basketball, he was playing a sneaky, crafty, referee-baiting version of it. That chicken fighting with a woman line says everything about how Jordan viewed him. Not as a rival to be respected, but as someone who didn't even belong on the same floor. That's classic MJ. He wasn't offended that Reggie scored points or talked trash, he was offended at the audacity. Jordan wanted to dominate his opponents so completely that they'd never even think about challenging him again. That was his thing, total psychological control. And that's exactly why Reggie Miller got under his skin. Because Reggie never played along with Jordan's script. Most players, when MJ started cooking them, just kept their heads down. They knew they were facing the best. But not Reggie. He'd hit a three, jog back down the court, and whisper something slick in Jordan's ear. He'd jab an elbow into MJ's ribs, flop the moment Jordan touched him, then throw his hands up like, "Ref, you see that?" That's what made their rivalry so electric. Reggie Miller wasn't scared to poke the bear, even when the bear was Michael Jordan.
I don't want people to think that it was some big rivalry, because a rivalry to me is we are on equal footing. I was never on equal footing with MJ, okay? But I loved the battles. And I know a lot of players that I played against, they would bow down to him. And that just was not going to be me. It was not in my nature to do that. So maybe I was hard-headed. Maybe I should have bowed down to him.
That's the kind of stuff that drove Michael Jordan absolutely insane. Because in his world, there was an order. Jordan sat at the top, and everyone else was supposed to fight for the scraps beneath him.